Hello, everybody, and welcome to Saturday's matches for the Victory Road World Cup of Pokémon VGC, sponsored by Metafeet, GG Tour, and Elgato. My name is Maeve O'Rourke. I am psyched to finally be joined on the mic by Hayden McTavish today. Hayden, we are being able to show people today 5 different matches instead of the 4 that we have been typically showing in previous weeks. So there is a lot of Pokemon action leading up as many of our friends are flying into London right now, and I know I am very excited.
Absolutely. So many matches we're showing today. I'm excited to get to cast with you for the first time. And we have just a lot of sort of increasing stakes for a number of teams as they're trying to get this last chance to qualify for the next stage of the tournament. And a few where we have sort of like a last hurrah of a team before they'll be eliminated. And I'm excited to sort of see both of those show up.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the times with these last matches for these teams, they can oftentimes bring something really fun, something that it may have been in the back burner of their team builder. So I love seeing stuff like that. And if you guys love seeing stuff like these Victory Road World Cup matches, there are plenty of places that you can take a look with our social media. So at VGC Victory Road is the Twitter. Every match gets put out live with tweets and constantly updating with the tournament structure itself. YouTube, all of these matches that we will be commentating will be uploaded, along with a lot of matches that aren't shown on stream. So definitely something to pay attention to. Twitch, you're most likely already here, but definitely stay tuned for, matches tomorrow as well. And then the Discord is where you can keep track of everything that's going on, chat with other players, and just kind of stay in tune and stay in touch, see what the schedule is looking like. So as we lean into kind of moving forward with these playoffs, it's going to be really exciting for us, especially to be able to look at the bracket on Victory Road's website, because then we'll be able to kind of see how the breakdown is. It's kind of, we're getting pretty close. We're getting pretty close to seeing who's going to be facing each other in the playoffs after Worlds has concluded. So I'm psyched, and we have a lot of really good matches to bring today as well, as you can see on the screen.
Yeah, we have 5 matches, as we mentioned before. We've got Poland versus Taiwan, Ecuador versus the UK, Australia versus Puerto Rico, the Netherlands versus Vietnam, and Spain versus Uruguay. So lots of different teams from lots of different groups. We've got sort of like Group 1 at the start and end of the matches, and then a few other groups, 3 and 4. The third and fourth match will be 2 really high-stakes matches of teams that are still really positioning for their spot going into the next stage of the tournament or potentially being eliminated. And the other 3 are a chance to see players sort of playing in a match that's a little bit lower stakes, but still brilliant practice under this format. Still a wonderful way to play some top-tier Pokemon right before the World Championship starts next week.
Yeah, and also even with today and including our matches featured yesterday, this does mean that we will have been able to feature matches from all 8 groups, which is really exciting. So if you missed any of the matches after today's stream, you can go and check those out on YouTube. On Victory Road's YouTube channel, which I was able to plug a little bit earlier. But if we want to go first into our very first match, right, and take a look, we have Michał Dziurzyński versus Jenn-Chau. So again, really interesting matches. You have Poland and you have Taiwan. So 2 interesting players. Both of these teams, their fates have already been decided. So Poland is looking incredibly comfortable moving on into the playoff rounds, and Michał, even though has also been able to do really well in this tournament, and so has Jenn-Chau. So, excited for both of these trainers to kind of be able to kind of go out and show exactly what we're looking to see from everybody today. So, I'm psyched. I love this time of the format. I know today is that weirder kind of day as we creep towards getting the last of the matches. By the end of the stream tomorrow, we'll be a little bit more finalized, but these matches today are still really important in kind of determining how these standings in the playoff bracket kind of ends up in the next really 2 weeks, because a week from today we'll be watching basically the semifinals of Worlds and kind of getting ramped up, but then we'll have more Pokemon to look into after. But if we want to go into the breakdown between these 2 teams, between Poland and Taiwan, and get a look at kind of what these teams have been running, what they've been using, it is currently 6-1 Taiwan over Poland, so Taiwan having a very commanding lead. Poland really needs to win just to kind of improve their differential, but either way, they're already smooth sailing throughout this group. And a lot of really nice standard teams here, still seeing a lot of Sun on the right-hand side and a lot of Kyogre on the left-hand side. Kind of funny how that balances out, but pretty standard stuff here moving forward. When you're running at this kind of high level, when you're playing at these high stakes matches, you want to be bringing stuff that feels really consistent.
Yeah, I think also totally fair for players if they do have something that's a little bit out there and less standard. Maybe they're trying to save it up their sleeve for this next stage of competition. So we're seeing some more standard teams, but I think I think we talked about how this is maybe lower stakes in terms of positioning in the tournament, but I think this last match still, I don't think either player's going in and thinking it doesn't matter at all. I imagine Taiwan getting a 7-1 is just such a huge momentum boost for that week off where you're sort of resting and preparing for the final stage of our tournament. And I imagine Poland being able to sort of bring it back up and say, we know Taiwan is an amazing team, but we can win this final set and get that up to 6-2. I think that momentum shift probably matters just a little bit going into this pause of Worlds. And so I think both players probably have some real stakes here, and I'm excited to see what they bring to this match to sort of give their teams a chance to have a little more momentum going into the next stage of the tournament.
Absolutely, right? Because if you look at Taiwan's previous results too in this group, Taiwan went 4-4 against Spain and 5-3 versus Uruguay. So those are two incredibly close weeks. Those are some nail biters of weeks in this stage. So having a commanding win at the end of the group stage is, like you said, a huge momentum boost forward moving into those playoff rounds. So, both of these trainers are definitely, I'm sure, trying to bring something that feels really consistent and really comfortable to them, something that they know that they can do really well with. So, both of these trainers have quite a lot of work moving forward. So, I'm definitely excited to see what they're going to be bringing for these games and kind of take a deeper dive into the players themselves. For Michał himself, he's got it's a player that I, haven't seen too much of. It's just because of the Poland matchup, but you don't always see in the United States a lot of these players. But he did perform in the World Cup last year, whereas Jenn-Chau had done a lot of different results, really nice results in his region. The Taichung Regionals top 8, Kaohsiung Regionals top 4, VR World Cup competitor last year, and World Championships Day 2 way back in 2017. So, nothing to shake a stick at on either side here, but it's really nice to see such strong competition between both of these players.
I think it's such a wonderful opportunity in this World Cup format. The sort of purpose of this being often to have players from totally different regions play each other. And it's nice to see sort of accomplished players that were chosen by their teams to represent their countries sort of being able to play people that they wouldn't normally get to play except maybe at a World Championships. Jenn-Chau clearly no stranger to top-tier global competition. Day 2 at Worlds is nothing to sneeze at, but I think it's exciting to see these players may have never played before, even though they're both really strong. And so I'm excited to see how this plays out here.
Yeah, and for Michał, he is going to be bringing that Zacian, Kyogre, Celesteela, Grimmsnarl, Tornadus, and Thundurus, whereas Jenn-Chau is going to be bringing Incineroar, Palkia, Calyrex, Ice Rider, Regieleki, Porygon 2, and Amoonguss. So Jenn-Chau's team, really interesting to see that Regieleki on there. Makes me almost wonder if it is that speed swap Porygon to allow that Regieleki to perform in Trick Room, whereas Michal's team is it's a lot of power. It's a really offensively strong team, and Celesteela is something that you can just switch that in and it can take almost any attack really, really comfortably, especially not seeing something like a Groudon or maybe even just another strong fire type user on Jenn-Chau's side.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of terrifying offense from Michal's team, and then also that option for sort of a slower Celesteela mode. This team also was piloted and got 9th place at the North American International Championships by WAC, or at least the same 6 Pokemon did. I remember that player mentioning that they had a tough matchup into Calyrex Trick Room, and so I'm curious if that sort of is going to lead to Michał needing to really be on the back foot and find a good adjustment, or if maybe he has figured out, okay, maybe if I play this way, I can still put enough pressure on the opposing team to really have an angle in. As you mentioned, that forever now, after seeing that wonderful match with Shoma, we now have to worry, what could the Porygon 2 and Regieleki do? There's so many things. And so definitely a lot of variety that Jenn-Chau could bring, even using sort of a standard approach with this Palkia and Calyrex Ice. So excited to see how that plays out, if Jenn-Chau has some adjustments that make it even harder for Michał, if Michał has some play adjustments to balance things back up.
Yeah, and you have to worry too, right? That Amoonguss that has now come out on side by side with this Palkia, if there is something like a safety goggles on the opposite side with the Grimmsnarl and Kyogre, because other than that, this team looks pretty Amoonguss weak, as it's possibly able to set up some things like a Rage Powder, or even put something like this Kyogre to sleep before it can start doing any potentially large damage.
Yeah, the safety goggles is a wonderful point, because otherwise this Amoonguss has a free spore into so much of this team. Michał has brought both Pokemon that can have a max move that would prevent sleep. I don't think we're likely to see that at the start, but it's definitely an option, and I'm curious if that might come up at some point in the best of 3. In the meantime, definitely a challenge to sort of figure out, how do I handle the momentum swings from Amoonguss can always just put me to sleep and gain turns for the opposing side. I don't have a lot of really strong damage into this Palkia. and definitely curious to see what Michał ends up going for, because definitely Jenn-Chau's in the lead at this starting position.
Yeah, and Jenn-Chau is going to be starting off with a Dynamax Palkia, most likely. Probably not that Amoonguss, even though you could maybe go for something like a Max Overgrowth. But you are much better off going with your Dynamax restricted Pokemon being this Palkia here. You've got the Rain Boost as well from the Kyogre on the opposite side. So if you go for something like a Max Geyser, you're going to be doing a ton of damage. Really onto either Pokemon, but Michał is going to be matching a Dynamax with a Dynamax of his own. So, like you said, both of his Pokemon have the opportunity to go for things like a Max Lightning or something that could set that terrain possibly and help prevent that Amoonguss from getting any pesky spores up. And this Kyogre may just be the best Pokemon to do it. You may be going for something like a Max Lightning into a Rage Powder, which could be a little bit complicated, but Palkia will be moving first thanks to its Max Geyser into the Grimmsnarl slot. Does a ton of damage, is enough to get that full one-hit knockout here, and getting Grimmsnarl off the field before it could set something up like a Light Screen is really huge. Max Lightning, though, no Rage Powder, so it goes off into this Palkia, most importantly setting this electric terrain to maybe prevent this Amoonguss from being as frustrating as it can be, since there was no Rage Powder this turn. So if it went for something like a Spore, which it looks like it did, not gonna matter thanks to the electric terrain.
Yeah, I think a wonderful read there to catch like the Max Lightning and stop the Spore, but also from Jenn-Chau to go for this Max and just take out that Grimmsnarl. I think often you might expect Grimmsnarl to go for a Light Screen and maybe survive that Max Geyser, but instead Jenn-Chau caught that the Grimmsnarl was going for an offensive move, trying to just do some damage into that Palkia if it tried to do a Trick Room. And maxing and just getting rid of the Grimmsnarl is such a huge leg up here for Jenn-Chau, even though you maybe waste a Spore into a Max Lightning. That was still a whole turn of Dynamax that Michał had to use just to stop Spore and not do all that much damage to the Palkia. So a good way for Michał to handle the Amoonguss, but every second that he spends trying to handle that Amoonguss is a second that this Palkia can just run wild and do a whole lot of damage. So curious to see what Michał finds to sort of try to bring things back. Now that Max Lightning is up, now that you have a lot of damage, but that Amoonguss is still there and ready to Rage Powder.
Yeah, and if you're this Zacian on the opposite side, right, you might be really psyched to be in front of this right in front of this Palkia, go for something like a Play Rough, but instead sending in this Landorus makes a lot of sense here. Possibly trying to dodge something like a Max Quake. Gets an Intimidate off onto two Pokemon that aren't really all too worried about it. However, it does possibly prevent you from taking that ground-type move. Amoonguss goes for the Rage Powder right out of the gate, possibly trying to protect its partner Pokemon Palkia. That is a lot of P letters right out of there. Max Geyser, though, from this Palkia, going into the Landorus slot. So a really nice call here, enough to get that one-hit knockout onto that Landorus and getting a huge threat off of the field before it can do any damage. Even something like a fly into that Amoonguss would be rough, but Max Hailstorm gonna be able to target into this Amoonguss, change the weather up here as well, and does a ton of damage. I wasn't able to see if that was a full knockout because it was so close, and it looks like it was not, but possibly this hail may be enough to get that last little bit of damage here. We'll just have to see. Is that little bit of chip? No, it was not. Okay, I had to double check. The frames were a little slow for me to catch.
So Amoonguss surviving there is so critical. It feels like Michał has been doing everything he can to try to handle this Amoonguss with this Kyogre, but it's been 2 Dynamax turns, and all Kyogre's been able to do is do like most of Amoonguss's health and set up the Max Lightning, where Palkia's gotten to take 2 KOs already. As you mentioned, that attempt to bait the Max Quake and switch into a Landorus so that it was maybe wasted from the Palkia was brilliant, and it wound up not panning out because Jenn-Chau was able to sort of see, oh, I have to worry about that particular play too. And being able to just get 2 KOs, this Palkia might even get a 3rd KO in this last turn of Dynamax, and this Amoonguss is still there protecting the Palkia from anything from that Zacian, even that Play Rough.
Yeah, and you have to imagine, right, that Max Geyser was so safe, because without the Grimmsnarl and having Kyogre on the field with the Zacian, all of the other 3 Pokemon that could be in the back are all flying types, right? So if you go for a Max Quake, any chance of a switch-in means that it's not going to connect. But a Protect plus a Rage Powder, so Protect from the Zacian, not trying to take any damage while this Amoonguss goes and tries to take all of the attention. Max Quake will go into this protected Zacian slot here. Still do a pretty decent chunk of damage, not as much as I'm sure you would have liked without that Protect in play. Boosting your special defense in front of this Kyogre, who is not loving seeing that, especially as it's trying to get as much damage off as possible, but has now wasted its 3rd Max turn. Not wasted, but has used its 3rd Max turn, targeting into this Amoonguss or doing something to try and stop this Amoonguss, while this Palkia has been able to sit really comfortably on this field and utilize all of its Dynamax turns to help it and its team.
this really feels like the way that the matchup seems to be playing out with these two players, that two of Michal's Pokemon are kind of worth one Amoonguss. Amoonguss is just that scary. And then Michał sort of had to sacrifice so much to get rid of it. You are in a much better position now with the Zacian to be able to threaten that Palkia, but because you have to set up that Max Lightning, this Regieleki is coming in with so much power in this electric terrain. That's really scary.
Yeah, and I mean, by seeing the Max Lightning right on this Kyogre, you can maybe make the assumption that it's the Assault Vest, which means that this Regieleki is in probably the best position it's going to be for the rest of the game, because you may not be facing down something like a Protect. So, you know, seeing the Max Lightning and the Max Hailstorm during those Dynamax moves makes this Regieleki feel so comfortable, and it's so much information to move into both Game 2 and possibly a Game 3.
Yeah, this Regieleki is such a brilliant Pokemon to bring in here, and I think Michal's definitely going to have to think about, okay, I know that I can't protect my Kyogre. How am I going to be able to handle this Regieleki right after the Amoonguss? And it looks like that Zacian's just going to take a KO, and it's just Kyogre versus the world, and that's a really tall order when the world includes a Palkia.
Yeah, showing the Life Orb here as well with that Wild Charge on the Regieleki. Origin Pulse misses, though, which is absolutely huge. Trying to, of course, try and go for the Origin Pulse instead of the Water Spout, but not hitting the Regieleki, who is your primary target, and still getting a critical hit with very little damage in the rain on this Palkia, who now goes for Trick Room. So you'll be faster than the Regieleki, which is good. However, now you've still got the chance of this Palkia being able to hit you first and do some pretty big damage.
A big reveal, too, from the Regieleki. I believe that was a Wild Charge into the Zacian, and so this Kyogre having that Assault Vest to try to tank attacks from Regieleki a little bit better, suddenly that just means you can't protect against the Wild Charge. And with Trick Room up, you're not worried about Regieleki so much this game right now, but in the future, that's definitely going to have to be something that Michał thinks about, that it's not just the Amoonguss to worry about, it's also that Regieleki, and apparently it's also this Dynamax Palkia that just took so many different KOs.
Yeah, Protect from the Regieleki this turn makes a lot of sense, right? If you can get damaged by this Kyogre, then you may. Water Spout, showing this Kyogre is the slowest thing on the field, currently slower than this Palkia, which we saw during those Dynamax turns as well. Water Spout, though, does truly not that much damage to this Palkia. This thing has just been able to sit here on a wall. Another Trick Room as well, so kind of maybe Jenn-Chau knowing that this Palkia was, realizing that this Palkia was not as fast as the Kyogre, but does kind of get a few moves out of the way for this Kyogre, and maybe allowing his Regieleki to attack first with the Wild Charge and just wrap this game up. Jenn-Chau may even be taking some extra time to think, which would make a lot of sense just as you're moving through the last bits of this game. Even though your electric terrain is over, I don't think that this Regieleki is going to have any issue getting this knockout with this Wild Charge on the Kyogre, and that is the end of Game 1 here for Michał and for Jenn-Chau.
It was an interesting play near the end there to sort of recognize you should go for Trick Room there, I think, in most situations, because you expect Regieleki to be knocked out. But then being able to sort of recognize, oh, this miss just gives me an easy guaranteed win condition, and I can just go for that Trick Room again and be able to set things up for Regieleki to finish things off. I think it's easy for a player to get caught up in, oh no, well, I look foolish if I do this. But it's just so clearly like the right way to adjust to a dynamic thing that happened in the game. And so it was nice to see Jenn-Chau just going for a nice safe play to finish off that game.
Yeah, so I mean, if you are Michał, right, your number one priority, although Amoonguss is, of course, a big priority. Amoonguss is a big priority. Getting that Palkia off of the field is truly what you need to focus on in that next game. Possibly bringing something that has, I don't know, a double target. If you have something with safety goggles, you should be bringing that just in case. You know, it just depends on what his options are for kind of handling getting damage onto that Palkia, right? Because that Grimmsnarl went for that Spirit Break in Game 1, which would have been a great way to get a lot of damage off and that special attack drop onto the Palkia. But that Amoonguss, of course, was giving some problems. And of course, the Palkia being able to go for that Max Geyser and get that knockoff meant that Grimmsnarl wasn't even able to move anyway. So, you know, I think if you're Michał, you have to just focus on getting more out of your max turns. Of course, going for the Max Lightning, it makes a lot of sense. I almost just wish that the Max Lightning itself, you know, could have maybe done more, or if you maybe need to lead a different Pokemon in the beginning that isn't going to get knocked out, so maybe the Celesteela comes in on turn 1 and just is able to tank a lot more damage from a Max Geyser from the Palkia. You know, I think you have to just play it a little bit differently.
Yeah, I think we're really seeing why both Amoonguss and Palkia are such scary Pokemon in this format. There's so many different ways that Amoonguss can cause problems, with the redirection, with Spore, and you have to try to account for both of those things, do damage to it and knock it out, but also stop that Spore. And then Palkia could set up Trick Room, right away, and you have to cover that, but then it could also Dynamax and take a bunch of KOs. And so we're seeing the same lead matchup this time around, with just so many threats from Amoonguss and Palkia. You can adjust and play so many different games without changing what the lead is.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing that's really interesting too is we only saw 3 Pokemon from Jenn-Chau's side last time. You can assume that it's the Calyrex Ice Rider in the back, which is why you go for that Trick Room. You know, and it's a pretty safe assumption, but there still isn't the aspect of hidden information, which is always going to act in your favor if you're able to hide it. But, you know, I think the Grimmsnarl this turn, possibly not going for an offensive move, maybe just going for something like a Light Screen this turn, is going to be really helpful for Michal's side, because then he can at least just kind of focus on maybe tanking some of these hits a little bit better. You may still have to go for that Max Lightning and get a Spore to stop and prevent that Spores, but another Max turn from this Palkia on turn 1 from Jenn-Chau. Of course, that's a play that I think feels pretty safe and pretty confident, especially after how strong this Palkia was with that early Dynamax in the last game with its partner Pokemon Amoonguss next to it, kind of preventing it from taking any really big hits here. So, you know, at least allows possibly, you know, Michał has to go for the opposite Dynamax, right? You have to go and prevent this Spore. But I'm really hoping, right, that this Grimmsnarl being able to go for something to kind of mitigate the damage, and, you know, you may be able to hang on and then do something else on the next turn and just maybe be a Thunder Wave or something like that, and try and maybe slow down some of the Pokemon on this team, because we know that the Palkia was going first in that last game. Light Screen from the Grimmsnarl this turn will prevent some of this damage from something like this Max Geyser coming out from the Palkia, which we saw that this was enough to get a one-hit knockout onto the Grimmsnarl. Even with this Light Screen, it brings it down to only 33 HP, the really low end of the HP here. Max Lightning once again, kind of calling that Rage Powder once more. However, no Rage Powder targets into the Amoonguss, and the Amoonguss possibly went for something like a Spore this turn, which may again be mitigated thanks to that electric terrain.
Yeah, so once again, catching that Spore with the Electric Terrain, I think Jenn-Chau perfectly content just to throw out a Spore and guarantee that the Kyogre has to waste a whole max turn doing a Max Lightning. I think a lot of interesting, slightly more subtle adjustments from Michał, saying, Amoonguss survived by about as much health as Max Lightning just did now when I used Max Hailstorm before, and so maybe if I Max Lightning into the Amoonguss, I can get that KO the next turn with Hailstorm, and then in the meantime, Grimmsnarl can slow down Palkia so that I'm actually keeping pace with my Dynamax Water type as opposed to my opponent's Dynamax Water type. And so they're small adjustments, but I think it's a totally different game 2 we're looking at here now with Michał, rather than losing the Grimmsnarl and not having any damage on the Amoonguss.
Yeah, but Amoonguss this turn going for the Protect, trying to play it a little bit safer, while this Grimmsnarl goes for the Reflect as well, just continuing to boost the Pokemon on Michal's side, just allow them to be a little bit bulkier in the face of some of this damage. Max Quake, though, from the Palkia, going into that Grimmsnarl, possibly predicting something like a switch, but either way, a nice way to get enough damage onto this Grimmsnarl for the knockout. The critical hit not really mattering here, but what does matter is that special defense boost for the Amoonguss and the Palkia, as they're going to be taking some pretty strong special attack moves from this Kyogre, especially if it can target into these Pokemon and make the most of its max turns. However, this Max Hailstorm going into the Amoonguss doesn't even bring it down to half of its HP, thanks to both the special defense boost and 2, that Protect.
Yeah, the sort of quartering of the damage on Protect sort of showing us that it looks like it would be a tall order to get that KO the next turn. On the Amoonguss, it didn't seem like it did a quarter of the remaining health on Amoonguss. We'll have to see. But definitely a wonderful way to sort of make sure I know that you want to bring Zacian in onto my Palkia, and I know I want to still have Rage Powder around when that happens. So I'm going to protect my Amoonguss, I'm going to boost its bulk as much as I can, I'm going to make sure that I keep this momentum I have from the lead situation. And Michał sort of losing some of the momentum gained on that first turn because this Amoonguss is just so difficult to take down.
Yeah, and I mean, you're kind of in the same position, right, where do you try and go for that call out of the Max Quake and then switch in your Landorus. You do have the Light Screen up, the Rain is currently not active, so it is in a much safer position to switch in here, and maybe allow your Zacian to get at least another turn of safety while you take care of the Amoonguss and then wrap up the end of the Dynamax turn for the Palkia. Your Kyogre is still at really good HP, so you can still have the opportunity to go for something like a Water Spout in the next turns, and just try and do as much damage as possible. But I think at this point, right, this Zacian is in a position where you're kind of having to make the weird choice of, do you go for the damage and kind of just hope that you're going to be able to maybe get the knockout onto the Amoonguss and then, you know, maybe allow your Kyogre in the afterthought to get an attack off with something like a, you know, like a Max Hailstorm onto the Palkia if you need to, if you're able to stop something like this Rage Powder that comes out from the Amoonguss, which it is showing this turn, just trying to prevent any damage from going off onto its partner Pokemon Palkia. But instead, Zacian going for Behemoth Blade, not going for that Play Rough, assuming that there was going to be a Rage Powder from the Amoonguss, targeting into that Pokemon and trying to get a knockout here, which it is able to get, which is going to free up this Kyogre to put a bunch of damage onto this Palkia, which it has been dying to do for probably the past 7 consecutive turns of games. But there will be a Max Quake in return onto this Zacian from the Palkia. Does just over half of its HP, but again, still getting more special defense boost and making this Palkia a real menace.
Yeah, so much special defense on this Palkia. Going to be tough to take out unless Zacian's able to do it. It also seems like this was a really tough turn for Michał. We saw that he almost timed out with the decision making. There's just so much going on with that Zacian. It could have switched out into a flying Pokemon. It could have stayed in, but Max Geyser wouldn't have done nearly as much now that Hail is up. It could have tried to go for a Play Rough if the Amoonguss didn't redirect things. And it turns out it just ends up taking out that Amoonguss and then taking enough damage that this Regieleki is really threatening to both of the Pokemon on Michal's side of the field, and this Palkia is in a great position to keep tanking attacks unless it has to take a physical move, and it's probably not going to have to take any attacks from the Zacian with that Regieleki on the field.
Yeah, I mean, this is the point, right, where you say, do I switch in the Landorus, and if so, do I switch it into, do I make the call, do I protect with Zacian, switch it in on the Kyogre side? You don't really have any kind of crazy boost that you'd be missing by switching that Kyogre out, but you still don't get a turn of damage onto the Palkia, right? And you're only kind of buying yourself time for that, just to kind of deal with the electric terrain maybe, and maybe dealing with the Regieleki. So you're in a really tough position because you have to kind of make the call of where is this Regieleki going to go? You put yourself into a weird 50-50. Do you decide to just not do either of them and just hope that this Regieleki attacks your Kyogre instead? But it's going into the Zacian, which is going to be enough to get that knockout, even with the Reflect up, thanks to the Grimmsnarl earlier on in the game. This does allow for this Kyogre to get its attack off without any damage, but we know that it clicked Origin Pulse, so it's not gonna, it has a chance to miss. However, no miss this game, which is what I'm sure Michał wanted in comparison to that last game. Getting this, getting the Regieleki off of the field is huge for the Landorus in the back. You have a little bit more movement around, but Trick Room is a great option for Jenn-Chau, allowing possibly for that Calyrex Ice Rider that may be sitting in back to come in and just absolutely kind of terrorize the rest of the team.
Yeah, definitely tough to have that Trick Room be so safe for Jenn-Chau to be able to get up. You can always make sure that the Zacian can attack that turn, and then the Palkia has so much special defense, so much resistance to water that there's just no way Kyogre can take it out. And now this Calyrex is coming in against this poor Landorus. Landorus gets to intimidate the Calyrex, but other than that, it's going to have a tough time doing much of anything because of that Glacial Lance.
Yeah, I mean, this is the only point where you're kind of reaping the benefits of putting up that Reflect earlier, but, I mean, you're still taking a 4-time Electric, and plus with a White Herb there as well, getting rid of that Intimidate is a really important piece of Michał to have, to have learned now. It's tough to not know it from that game 1 because we never actually saw the Calyrex on field. And I think it's tough for Kyogre at this point, right? Because you don't want to go for your Water Spout because you're going to be taking damage from a double targeting move in that Glacial Lance. So you may have to go for something like the Ice Beam because the Hail is up. You could go for the Thunder and get the boost from the electric terrain, but you're still maybe not doing the amount of damage output that you would originally like to do. And plus you have to kind of assume that if your Landorus can't stay on the field for very long, then you're going to be in a tough spot. But Protect this turn will at least help this Landorus deal with at least one turn of this Glacial Lance and Trick Room. So, trying to get rid of maybe these turns of Trick Room and allow for yourself to hang on a little bit longer. Glacial Lance, though, into this Kyogre is still going to do a really nice amount of damage thanks to that White Herb removing the Intimidate. Honestly, actually, I expected a little bit more, so maybe I was incorrect. Water Spout here going to be able to do a really nice chunk as well to both of these Pokemon. Not enough, possibly, that you would have liked to have seen, and those special defense boosts really paying dividends. Spatial Rend into the Kyogre as well. It does another chunk of damage, brings this Kyogre down to finally under half of its HP, but everything here is sitting pretty bulky.
Yeah, so the Kyogre's sitting bulky and able to take these hits in Trick Room, but unfortunately not able to keep pace offensively. We've got this Glacial Lance coming out. We know that another round of the exact same moves from Jenn-Chau would probably take out both of Michal's Pokemon, and so it's really tough for Michał to find if there's any, even maybe a really low probability win condition. Maybe you have to start dodging Spatial Rends, getting Thunder Paralyses, but it's definitely tough to find any way around just once Trick Room goes up and there's no real way to stop it on that Palkia. and then you get those Glacial Lances off. There's just so little that Michał can do to be able to avoid the damage from that Glacial Lance. That was, even though it was less than we were expecting, that was still so much damage onto that Kyogre. Glacial Lance is so strong, especially with that Whiter making sure that Intimidate couldn't go off.
Yeah, we're at a point now where we're hoping for freezes, paralysis, triple protects, rock slide flinches, you know, kind of that whole shebang, right, if you're Michał. Landorus does get the double protect, though, which is very nice, because if you're able to get some sort of status condition onto possibly this Calyrex, then you could be in a much better position moving forward. Palkia as well, depending on who you target. But we at least know that this Kyogre is going to be able to deal with this Glacial Lance, unless there is something like a critical hit here. But it gets brought down. It's really kind of, it looks like it's on that cusp. Origin Pulse this turn connects on both of the Pokemon on Jenn-Chau's side. No status condition option here, but it does consistently take a little bit more damage down, and you're trying to dodge this Spatial Rend, but no dice. Spatial Rend going into this Kyogre brings it down all the way to 0 HP, so this Kyogre now off of the field. It is up to this Landorus to now go for, I think, a couple more protects. And also, I don't know if this Landorus has taken any chip damage from that hail. You might have to remind me, and that might... Oh, it has. Okay, never mind. Forgive me for that.
Definitely a tough situation for Michał, but there is still a win condition. It looks like Michal's not going to go for the quadruple. Oh, maybe! Considers forfeiting, then decides to go for... If you can protect all the way through Trick Room.
Oh, I thought he had it. I thought he did. Oh, that Glacial Lance is going to most likely pretty cleanly wrap up this game for Taiwan and for Jenn-Chau. You know, I think at this point, right, this Landorus did all that it could, which was just try and stall out that Trick Room. But this, you know, it's great for Taiwan to wrap up their week here as well. They can now move forward with, I believe it was 7-1 by the end of this week. So a really nice way for them to kind of move forward into that next playoff stage of games. And maybe for some of these players, if they're competing at Worlds this year, to feel a little bit more confident as well. But, you know, kind of a crazy set of funky circumstances towards the end of the game. So with this win locked against Poland, I'm now getting the information. Taiwan is definitely in seed number 1 with 2 wins, 1 tie, and Poland is definitely in seed number 2 with 2 wins and 1 loss. And this means Spain and Uruguay are definitely out. So that has wrapped up Group 1. We are all secure in that section. And as we move on today, we may get a little bit more information throughout the rest of these matches.
Yeah, I think who they will play going forwards is still yet to be decided. Canada might be playing either Taiwan or Poland, depending on sort of the outcome of a few more matches once we get into the next stage of the tournament. But for now, Taiwan and Poland both able to sort of take a moment, rest, see what worked and what didn't from this last week of competition, go to the World Championships if they're attending, watch and learn whatever happens if they're not, and then we'll be jumping into the next stage for both of these countries. So congratulations to both countries for moving forwards, and congratulations to both of these players for playing a wonderful match. It's tough to play a game where your matchup is just so far skewed, but I think Jenn-Chau did a good job of not getting comfortable and still pushing for the best angles to get the win, and Michał did a good job of playing to every angle that he could. If that Calyrex hadn't had a White Herb, if that Landorus had gotten 4 protects in Trick Room, there might have been a way out. You might have been able to find some way to do enough damage to win. And that's not what we saw, but it was fun to see both players recognizing this is not a guaranteed win for either side. We've got to play our hearts out to get this.
Yeah, it would be the game that goes on stream that has the most unlikely sets of critical hits and quadruple protects and, you know, just the things that you're like, I can't believe I lost this way, and now everybody has to see it. But that wraps up our first round of today. Again, we are playing 5 matches today, so there are still 4 more left after this. We will be taking a very quick break, and then we'll be coming back with our second round of the day, so do not go anywhere.